Good morning. Welcome back to the Old Shed Workshop. Today I want to go over the installation of a steering stabilizer in my F450 Super Duty. If you look on the internet, you can find many videos on steering stabilizers for the F250s and 350s. You'd be hard pressed to find anything for the 450. I put Bilstein 4600 series shocks all the way around, and I wanted to stay with Bilstein for the steering stabilizer. After quite a bit of research to try to find a phone number, I was able to contact somebody from Bilstein and learn that they don't make a steering stabilizer for the Ford F450. I didn't find the need to go to the 5100 series because they're typically used in an application where the truck is either lifted or the owner is going off-road. I do neither of those. I didn't want to go with the dual steering stabilizer because I don't think it's really necessary for my particular application. But I wanted to go with a more stout steering stabilizer than the OEM stabilizer that comes from Ford. I was able to find a Rancho RS5415 series stabilizer. The manufacturer does specify that it will fit the F450 series trucks. There are others available. I believe there's a Fox and a King. They're significantly more money. Up above, I'll put a photo of the original OEM stock model number. I'll put a photo of the Rancho model number, and I'll put a picture of the diagram from Rancho that gives you the torque spec. If you're wondering where did I come up with the torque spec, it's right from Rancho. I'm going to do some of the video under the truck, and I'm going to do some of the video on the bench just to make it easier to see. And I'll share with you the little tip I came up with to get that tapered stud out of the drag link. If you like what you see, I appreciate you guys stopping in. I would appreciate it if you'd also take a minute to like and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications on future videos. So let's get right to it. I think the easiest way to explain this is to show you from underneath the truck. This is the Rancho RS5415 stock number. It's the only steering stabilizer I found specifically for the F450 Super Duty. There is another one made by Fox and one made by King. They're significantly more money. And the RS5415 is readily available. You can get it on Amazon, and I'll put a link below. The first thing is this bolt over here that's connected to the frame. That's a 15mm bolt, and it's a bear to get out. You're going to need to put a little PB blaster on it and use a breaker bar. If you're old school like me, my breaker bar is a 3/8" ratchet wrench with a piece of black pipe. It's the same thing I've been using for over 40 years, works every time. Now you come down to, I guess, what I'd call a business end, where it attaches to the drag link. This nut is 18mm. This nut is 18mm. This is a tapered shaft that goes into the drag link. When you assemble this, you put this bolt in, which is all part of the threaded end and the tapered shank. This is a 22mm bolt. I should say it's a 22mm size that you put a wrench in, and then you torque this to 35 foot-pounds. There's a lot of videos on YouTube about how difficult it is to get this piece out of the drag link. I'm going to show you a trick I used, and it popped right out. This is 18mm also, and it's also set to 35 foot-pounds. This bolt is the only piece that's reused from the original equipment. The reason it was such a bear to get out is because it was loaded with red Loctite. I took it over to the wire wheel on the grinder, and I cleaned it up real well, put it back in with fresh red Loctite, and torqued it up to 35 foot-pounds. Here's the OEM steering stabilizer on the bench. It's going to be approximately in this orientation under the truck. You can get a good look at this tapered stud. And what I did in order to get this off, put some PB Blaster on it in place on the top of the stud and the nut and on the bolt that's on this side. And when it's time to try to get this off, the nut will come loose pretty easily. But in order to try to get this tapered stud out of the drag link, it's a little harder. I've seen a lot of videos where guys use a pickle fork or they pound on it with a hammer and try to get it out. I think I was pretty fortunate in that my truck doesn't have a whole lot of miles on it. Might be a little more difficult for guys who have high mileage trucks. But this is the solution I came up with. Remember, the orientation is roughly something like this under the truck. I'll show you what I came up with. While you're under the truck, you have enough room to get an air hammer up into the suspension enough to get you to this stud. So I've taken out the hammer just to show you for clarity. This, you'd think would just bounce all over the place and bounce off the stud. All you need to do is take a small piece of pipe. I cut this piece off a length of conduit my neighbor had, and I put the small piece of conduit over the stud, so now the hammer can't bounce off the end of the stud. All right, you don't have to be all the way down. You want to keep it so that the hammer stays inside the little piece of pipe. My suggestion is you want to try to keep this nut down pretty far on the threads, because once this pops, you don't want this end hitting your lower radiator hose and maybe tearing the hose. If you leave the nut on, then it can only travel that far, and it's not going to hit the lower radiator hose. That's the trick. A small piece of conduit, or a little, if you got a black pipe nipple that's a couple inches long. I cut this about 2.5 inches, and it was enough to put it on, and there's plenty of room to get your air hammer in there. Hope that helps. So for all you guys with the F450 Super Duties, here's the original part number. I hope this helps, and we'll see you on the next one.